Gentlemen, let's get into the gaming media and how they refuse to acknowledge Concord's Disastrous launch. Now, I sent you guys a bunch of things. We've seen, I keep hearing the terminology "kid gloves," and I think people are onto something with this. And this is where we get into where I believe there is an absolute Xbox tax. Hypothetically, if this would have been a game that was published and produced by an Xbox first-party studio and published by Microsoft, it would have been put through the ringer. Honestly, from inception of launch, you would have probably had about 70 articles, some of which would have been doubles and triples from multiple writers on a publication, because the hate brigade would have come out and they would have driven this into the ground as it deserves, because the game is just not good. And if Xbox put out a game like that, let's see, what was that? Oh, Redfall. Redfall was destroyed. And you know what? To be fair, the criticism that came behind that game, even though I enjoyed it, that game was broken at launch. It was broken 2 times at every angle. And it just did not launch well. And eventually they got it to 60. Eventually they did all, the big patch. It runs great now. Is it still, I'll put it this way. It's not the greatest game since sliced bread, but I very much enjoyed my time with it. With all of that said, and I'm going to go in reverse order here. I'm going to go Fuzzy first. Fuzzy, when you look at how the quote unquote kid gloves are being put on for Redfall, one of the running narratives that I saw, and again, this is no names because we don't do names here. Everyone jumping in front of the bullets for this studio because of how poor this game was. Now, here on Double Barrel Gaming, we don't dance on the graves of anyone's failures. We don't want to see anyone fail. That is clear as day in the way I produce these shows. But not talking about something that is a disaster as this, well, that's not going to happen. We are going to talk about it. And there were a lot of media types that were jumping in front of the bullets or the arrows for this studio and their lackluster launch. I'm sorry to say, this game is an epic failure. It has no appealing qualities whatsoever. The character design is egregious. The price point at $40 tells me that if you don't think that there's problems within SIE and PlayStation, you're putting your head in the sand, because this is a perfect example of the left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing. Nobody puts a gas game out and charges you $40 for it that's this bad. And where this really goes, and again, this should be clear as day for you. The last PlayStation show that was awful had this game there. And on top of having this game here and telling us that they wanted to charge gamers $40 for what a lot of people called a dollar store Guardians of the Galaxy type of character and cast, you have Marvel rivals that not only slapped on that PlayStation show, but have since then just taken over conversation when it comes to hero shooters, and every character will be free to play at launch. Just straight up bonkers. This was going to fail one way or another. And I think where we get into the media is protecting Sony and protecting PlayStation is how there are no articles talking about this. There's been a few. Destin Legary just did a video where he destroyed this game. I didn't get a chance to read it. Someone had sent me, quite a few people sent it to me. I'm going to check it out after the show. And I'm sure he's going to be very pointed, as he can be, and I can't wait to hear it. But the truth of the matter is, Fuzzy, this should be an alarm bell for Sony. I think that, again, as bad as the game is, we're not going to drive the point home any further. We've already said our piece. You can say yours and not worry about any arrows, because you have every right to give this game the business. But I think the bigger question here on the back end is, This has failed. Now, Helldivers on PC did super well.
Mm-hmm.
That has fallen off unbelievably. So
Yeah.
that's not making money for them like it once did. Now, could it come back? Yeah, I would imagine if they do like a big update, it's going to bring some of the players back, but it's just not hitting anymore. This has failed. Jade Raymond's game, there's been no talk of that. Fair Games looks like it looks like another version of this, just a different type.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, now we're hearing Jason Schreier reported that Marathon is in really poor shape. Stoney's in a pickle, folks. I said this last night on Dave's show. I will say it again now. If you think that it's doom and gloom for Xbox because they're putting games on PlayStation, you need to ask yourself, what the hell is PlayStation doing? There's no roadmap. They went gas, canceled 7 out of the 12. What they have left is not hitting, and we have no idea what first party is working on. Folks, I'm here to tell you, you should be asking some questions about what Sony's doing. Let's talk about it.
Where to begin? All right. I said this, well, early on when we first saw the game, I thought it was players versus bots because the other team characters didn't look interesting at all. They look extremely generic. And come to find out that is the case. Was it 16 or 18 characters? Only about 8 of them have some sort of style to them that looks redeemable. But outside of that, this game was never for me, so I'm not going to go into it too much. But where the gaming media, I wouldn't say they piss me off, but they definitely disappoint me. If we recall, Lawbreakers didn't do so well on PlayStation, and the media called out Xbox fans for talking to Cliffy B about bringing it to Xbox and why it was better. Like the media focused on why it was better to launch it on PlayStation, because there's more players or whatever the case is, but they didn't show up for that game. Then Bleeding Edge came out and they badmouthed that game into oblivion. I mean, it was a passion project that the team just wanted to get out of their system kind of thing and see if it had any legs to it. I still think the characters were far more interesting than the ones here for I was about to say Guardians of the Galaxy, Concord. But I would say put some of those characters in Killer Instinct, especially the guitar guy and the samurai guy. At least those two, and a lot of other ones would work well in Killer Instinct as well. But they badmouth that, and that started on launch weekend on Steam with 2,000 players.
Yes,
I think Concord would kill for to have that many, and we all know what happened to Bleeding Edge. But once again, the gaming media gave it a bad rap right off the rip and never gave it a chance. Nothing saying like, "Oh, you should give it a chance," or "Well, there's good bones there." None of that. It was like, burn it. Why is Microsoft buying these places? They don't know how to manage anything. This is stupid. Blah blah blah. Tons of articles on it. Redfall comes out, kind of the same thing. I mean, yeah, Redfall had its issues. It was kind of made while unsupervised per se kind of thing, but there was some good bones in it and people enjoyed it. And then with some of the updates, people enjoyed it more, but ultimately it led to the closure of that particular studio or that portion of the studio that worked on it. And the media didn't back off once as far as badmouth in that game. No revisits like, "Hey, I'm playing this after the updates." None of that. So it seems like there's a pattern whenever it's an Xbox game in particular or Xbox can be crapped on, they do it. But if it's PlayStation, oh no, we should give this a chance. Oh, not having a roadmap or a lineup of games is a good thing because reasons. I don't know. But
one game per year. Oh, that's excellent. No, you should hope for one game per year.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's just a weird thing that the media is not, and I don't mean to harp on a failure or a misstep of a studio, but to have people constantly do articles on Starfield, the game that people forgot, but yet they're still writing on it. I mean, there's tons of people still playing it. Maybe not as many as launch, but it's a single player game. So I guess they forgot about that. But if you're going to harp over a game like Starfield that people forgot about, or losing 90% of its player base, like, it would be nice if you even had enough of a player base to lose some of them and then have a percentage loss kind of thing. But the media is going to do what they do. I'm going to say this now until Xbox transforms again, kind of thing. PlayStation is blue bubble, Xbox is green bubble, at least here in the States. If anybody outside the US doesn't understand that, just understand that iPhone is the dominant platform, and kids even get bullied over having Android instead of an iPhone. So it's kind of
awful, by the way.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing with these consoles. And when it comes to the gaming media, if Xbox does it, it's terrible, bad, whatever. But the minute PlayStation does it, it's great. Or if something like completely craps the bed, like Bungie, like, who knew that Bungie was supposed to be the better acquisition than Activision? But
according to some, yeah.
No, but I have to at least put some of the blame on Bungie, because if it wasn't for them, I guess, trying to protect their hierarchy position over at PlayStation, we would have probably had factions. We probably would have had that Spider-Verse game, but it seems like they were the ones that shot it down. And the only game that really, or one of the games that survived, was one from some former Bungie employees that worked on Destiny. So it was like, oh, well, I guess the core team over at Destiny was like, well, they'll never match us. It's like our little brother. They're cool. All the other ones, oh, no, they got to get them out of here. But I really wish somebody over at Naughty Dog would grab their cojones and go into a board meeting and say, we're going to put factions live today, and I guarantee you we'll have 10 times the amount of players on it without even having to advertise. Like, it could just be a tweet on Twitter or X or whatever you call it now. And I guarantee you factions 2 would have more players in 24 hours than if you would add every player that's ever played Concord, like, on a daily basis, combine those days, and I think it would still beat it in the first 24 hours. But nobody's going to do that, unfortunately. I guess Sony is learning the hard way of, games as a service is hard. And luckily, Xbox has put in the time and effort and has a ton of games that are like that are working out for them. And hopefully at some point, Sony will find something that works for them. I mean, they need to find a way to incentivize PC people to sign up for PSN. Just give away free skins or free season map, or not season map, but like a free, battle pass or something. Like anything to at least convince them. So if that's what you really want, if you can't live with knowing that these people are on Steam but still playing your game, then find a way to incentivize them to sign up for a PSN. But other than that, I don't know what Helldivers 2 does. When it comes to fair games, that's Payday 3 knockoff, kind of.
Yep.
If anything, they better go back to the drawing board and make it, GTA Online, and not just Payday 3 knockoff, and do the heists and do other stuff, and make sure you have clothing, cars, and houses and businesses like GTA does to maybe, have something that will hold them over as far as a good, games as a service for them. But yeah, it's like crickets when it comes to critiques on PlayStation. I mean, as a PlayStation owner, I find that I'm probably one of the few critiques. I know BitCloud does it as well, and even Mr. Badbit on occasion. But I critique the battery life on the controller. I critique the stupid menus. I critique the fact that nobody's talking about a roadmap. And just, why can't these things be on PC? Like, I'm looking forward to Gran Turismo coming to PC at some point, but we'll see if that ever happens. But right now, Concord, I would say it's probably better to cut their losses on that today. Unfortunately, I don't mean closing the studio. Just close the server, put that team on something else, or maybe hand them whatever Naughty Dog was working on with factions and say, get this to the finish line, put this out ASAP. And go from there. I think that would be a much better call. I know that sounds crazy, but I guarantee you that game, if it's anything remotely like the day before, or at least the vibe of what the day before was supposed to be, that would be at least enough of a hit for Sony to be satisfied, I think. Because look at how many people wish listed that game. I think if you were to go head to head on the number of wish lists versus Black Myth Wukong versus the day before it was known to be a scam, I think that one the day before outdid Black Myth Wukong, but I could be wrong. So we'll see. But it's a shame, but leave it to the podcasters and a handful of the media that may say something and then get blacklisted by PlayStation and never get codes in the future. So it is what it is.
But Steel Rain, let's bring you in and discuss Concord. And again, this isn't just Concord is a bad game. The problem that no one wants to recognize, and what I have not seen from the gaming media here, is the fact that there are a lot of question marks to what happens to Sony next. Now, granted, I don't think Sony put all of their eggs in one basket for this being the only gas game that they're making. I believe Bend Studios is working on something. They might have another one in development. Obviously, we've already talked about Jade Raymond's game. Fair Games is going to be releasing. I don't think it's this year. It's definitely going to be next year. But then when you start to look at the playing field, and this is where I pull a Steel Rain, pull yourself back, ladies and gentlemen.
Absolutely.
Pull yourself back into that RTS view and just look at the playing field. Now, Sony had a very standard, fair playbook, and it worked super well for them. In 2018, 2019, 2020, they dropped bomb after bomb after bomb in single-player, story-driven, adult-themed games. Now, maybe those games weren't for you, but almost 90-something% of those games were for me. And that's why I had a PS4 Pro, and I bought all those games, and that's why I bought a PS5.
Well, they bought them to PC. So
right,
yeah,
right. And there you go. But when you pull yourself back, that's not the same PlayStation, ladies and gentlemen. They haven't been that PlayStation in years. Whether that be 18 months or 24 months, they have not been the same since some big changes happened internally. And when you look at where they're going now, there's no roadmap. And the only thing that we do know is coming were these gas games. Obviously, Fair Games, I think it's going to flop. We've heard from Jason Schreier and many other people behind the scenes that Marathon is a disaster. This Concord comes out, it's another disaster. So the question is, where does Sony pivot? When does somebody take the reins? Because if there's no roadmap and we have no idea what first party is making in regards to the bangers they're known for, and they already have games that look and sound like they're going to fail upon release in their gas games, to suggest that Sony is not in a bit of a tailspin, or as simplistic as you can get, the left hand knowing what the right hand is doing, and then of course both hands washing the face. I don't know what else you could see or ask for proof. Let's get your thoughts, man.
The proof right now in the pudding is that Sony is completely lost in the sauce as far as it comes to online gaming in totality. They hit one with Helldivers 2, but again, that is not their first party. So still, you have to take in consideration on what their true plan is moving forward. Again, being known for single player games is great and all. And I think they should continue to do that. But they have also, and I think that why this is such a big topic, and it should continue to be a big topic, is things have to move forward. And Sony has made it blatantly obvious that they want to move things forward. They're bringing everything to PC, all the games that people said that weren't going to come, God of War, Ghost of Tsushima, Last of Us 2, all these games are coming to PC or are on PC currently. So obviously there has been a change in the dichotomy that is known as Sony. Now, the one thing that I want to give Concord is it is seemingly getting more console attention than it is on PC. There is about, I want to say 8,000 reviews on the PlayStation Store, I believe that I saw earlier. Don't quote, correct me if I'm wrong on that. So obviously there are other people playing it now. Could Sony have used bots to try to jump those numbers up? Heck yeah, they could have. Companies do these things to make things look a certain way for business, right? So if I was going to take it to true and say, man, well, this is more of a console, this is more of a game that speaks to the console player, sure. But the one thing that is undeniable is that typically the Sony console player is not a multiplayer PvP online type of gamer. They are more single player focused typically. And bringing these live service games into their ecosystem is something that is of newer standing. I know people go back to, we had games like SOCOM, which supposedly, rumor have it and take it with a grain of salt,
yep,
SOCOM was canceled for Concord. So again, I have to ask again. That's a rumor. Take it as it was a
military shooter, but I mean, come on.
I would have to imagine that would have been SOCOM.
If
it's not SOCOM, then they were trying to create something completely different. But again, the problem that I personally have with Sony per se, and part of the reason I don't believe in investing in their ecosystem, is because they have blatantly shown me that they do not respect their player base or care for their player base. To me, it has come across as if they have closed their eyes and just said, hey man, whatever sounds good, just keep doing what we've been doing and we'll figure it out later. And they keep pushing that ball down the road, or they'll put it in the corner for a bit and say, nah, man, it's all good. These people love it. They're buying consoles. Man, it's all great. It doesn't matter how many are turned on or not. It's all good. But then you see them making these changes. And again, I get that people are like, man, we got all these consoles sold. We got all these people in our ecosystem. Sure. But there's also something to be said on why are they implementing so much sooner than later a PlayStation Network infrastructure on PC, if that's the case, right? Everybody's like, oh, well, they don't need to make this push. They don't need the PC audience, man. They're good in the console space. Obviously, they're not, right? Something is changing behind the scenes, but it's changing in a manner where, again, I have to take everything at face value from what we were given, right? The information that we were given. Bungie, especially from coming out of the FTC and everything, was supposed to come in to help PlayStation understand what it is to make a live service game, or to help build up some of that infrastructure. Could that still happen? Sure. But you're talking about a company in Bungie who has their own problems, had been having their own problems for a while. So now they have to rectify those issues. You had Bungie come and critique some of the projects that you had under your belt, but Concord passed. Everything else, I'm telling you guys, just like the point that you made earlier, Boom, in comparison, if they would have at least set Concord to the side for a year and actually launched factions or put more people onto factions, the reason that I can agree with you, and I think other people should be able to see just conceptually why that game would have worked and been more unique in the space, and I guarantee you probably would have had 20,000 concurrent players playing right now, is because there is no other third-person game on the market that is like that. Anybody that played the first factions would be able to tell you and demonstrate, and I implore anybody who has a PlayStation 4 to boot up factions that Last of Us 2 online. I mean, Last of Us 1 online. Well, I mean, because they in the original PlayStation 4 version, because they took it out, the remastered one, not the remake, the remastered one, because they took it out of that one for whatever reason. But anyway. But you go back to that original and look across the market and see if there's anything else even close to comparison. And to me, the closest thing that you could probably say is Gears, but it's not even remotely close in how those games play. The next thing you could probably say, let's keep it in the same ecosystem, is Uncharted, but it's not even remotely in the way those games play, from at least what I've seen. I've never experienced Uncharted. I've only observed, but I have played a good bit of factions, right? So it is, to me, the issue that I'm finding is, even with this whole Concord scenario, the reason that Concord isn't doing great, I'll just make it extremely simple for everybody. It's not an attractive game. Point blank, period. Regardless if the game is good, regardless of how much content that there is in it, if you do not have cool characters, nobody cares. We are in gaming. This is a form of entertainment. If I wanted to go outside and see normal people, I would go outside and see normal people, right? Or see the more diverse. Now, again, the thing that's confusing to me is that you can still have the diversity, the inclusion, the thing that everybody gets so up in arms about. And it's like, oh man, if I put one black dude in it, it's cool then, right? Doesn't matter how he looks. No, man, I would still like this man to be cool. Oh, I put an Asian in it. It's good. I put a girl in it. She's small. Got an ugly one in there. Got a cute one in there. Bro, but are they cool? Do they stand out for themselves? You have a hero-based game where the heroes don't represent heroes. Bro, when I think of heroes, the first thing I'm thinking of is somebody that I could probably get an action figure for, or somebody that I would put on a wallpaper. None of those characters are wallpaper-worthy characters. Whereas when you look at Overwatch, when you looked at Paladins, when you looked at Team Fortress, when you look at all these other hero-based styled games, you have appealing characters regardless of how other people feel about it. And I don't think even Overwatch is the most creative game that I've ever played visually as far as art direction goes. But I can say the reason, for an example, a Marvel Rivals, who, again, for the sake of conversation, like, oh, well, and everybody says they don't want these team-based games, but then Marvel Rivals comes out and is exact an Overwatch clone, and now you guys are excited about it, but not for Concord. Well, guess what? Marvel Rivals is using a universe that has already existed for 100 years at almost this point. Not only that, they got a dope freaking art style. So it works. You have a door. You're doing and they're doing very similar things to what Concord is doing. Characters all releasing, only paying for skins, more of a roadmap, all these things that we like. But the number one thing that is not there is that the game is not attractive. It's not appealing to anybody. It does come across bland. I've heard about some of the underlying systems and the team-based mechanic that they have where you can have your own kind of squad, right? And you can level up that squad in Concord to where, like, so you'll have a squad of 3 different characters that you use, and each character that you use gets their own passive. And as you progress through the game, you can use these different passives. It sounds like it has cool things going on for it, but it's not speaking to the wider audience. And again, as much as the console players may be able to carry it up front, maybe even a little bit, it is a PC styled game.
Yep.
The PC gamers are going to determine whether that game is going to continue to exist as is. Why? Because Gears of War has proven it. Halo has proven it. There are games that just not the console players are going to be the base de facto. Not only that, but this isn't, considering when those games came out almost 20 years ago. There is a lot of competition, too many games to play out there. You gotta be not only unique, but be a good game as well. So that's kind of where I want to tie everything up with some of the points that y'all brought in. But yeah, man, it's just unfortunate to see a decent seemingly playing game have a lot of the not get its attention or not get its just dues, because you have people behind the scenes up top, Sony, who are, again, I've been making posts here recently asking people, like, just making statements that why does the publisher that we look to for quality, quote unquote, is not delivering iconic characters? Concord should have had those iconic characters, right? Because you're Sony, right? You have that creativity. I thought that's why you were respected in this industry. Aren't you one of the grandpappies of gaming? Where is some of that wherewithal? Where is some of that know-how? Where is some of that finger on the pulse that I would expect from you? So.